For the last 6 months, I've been recuperating from some major surgery I had back last year. So I haven't had a chance to get out in this last year too much. But in the New York area, it's very interesting. In North Carolina, it was kind of isolated for us because there's not a whole lot of Buddhism going around in the South. There is some, but it's sparse, as you can imagine, um, in that area. But here in New York, there are a few more, um, and it's very different, I think, from what I've experienced in California. Um, but it's good, I've been able to visit and teach at some of the centers here, Brooklyn Zen Center, up at San Mauro at Mountains and Rivers Order, Daido Loris tradition. Um, and, I get around, or I have in the past. So it's really good. Um, and it's nice to see the differences in regions um, in America. That's going to be
Yeah,
what's special about us.
certainly. Uh, and I do want to kind of explore more of this too, because you've also explored different sanghas and different traditions in kind of the world over. You've also been to Europe and you've been to Japan, and you've kind of experienced practice in those different locations as well. But before I ask more about that, what is the experience like? At least just then, maybe specifically in North Carolina. I don't know if you've explored other southern states in America with practicing Buddhism, maybe specifically Zen. But what is it like to be a founding member of Great Tree Zen Temple and be a part of like the foundations of building a Zen community or like a Buddhist community in a place that might have more of like a Christian dominant or otherwise other faith tradition dominant space?
Hmm. Um, it can be very lonely at times, but it's also, how do I put this? Um, Lonely. We're in the Billy Graham Belt in North Carolina. Not too far from where we are is the Billy Graham Center and all those types of things. Um, and it's not so much that we are, in conflict with anybody. And in fact, we've had a lot of great friendships with people or other organizations in the community that are not necessarily Buddhist. And there are a few more there that Buddhists there that you wouldn't expect. Not very big Buddhist centers. Urban Dharma is there. Um, ooh, Lost their name. But a Philip Keplo group is right across the road from us. From Great Tree. Um, so here and there are a few. And oddly enough, we get visits from other states. There's the folks in Georgia, Atlanta Zen Group, and uh, we get visits from them. So um, there is some exchange going on. A lot of exchange with the Unitarians, as usual. There you go. And but it's not the sort of crowd that you get with if you're out in San Francisco or LA. It's very quiet, but yeah, it can be sometimes feel sometimes very isolated because of that. As I said, we've never had any difficulties with anyone or any other group that didn't want us there. Not yet anyway. Let's say. Um, and yeah, it's a very quiet existence. Um, and our sangha is very small. You know, it's usually if people come and go, very small. It gets very familiar sometimes. Um, but and the people who have been around a long time, um, they're they're family. You know, it's like having your family over for, New Year's Eve, ringing the bells and that kind of thing. So, in a sense, it's great because it's small. In a sense, it's um, frustrating because having to stay small means we don't get to practice the full of the tradition in terms of ceremony and so on. You know, when there's only 2 months in the in the building, you can't have a Ryuban. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, lots of adjustments, lots of I don't know, just being very small and
Yeah.
and simple. And when we have contact with other traditions, it's usually very, very friendly. Um, though I do say that our experience with the doing prison work, it's not so friendly, but we did it anyway. You know, they let us in. So
It,
yeah,
it,
I don't
it
know if
was.
that fully answers the question.
Oh, you absolutely did. You
Yeah.
absolutely did. Well, just because we just uh approached the topic, when you work with the correctional facility, what did it feel like the organizers or the people that are on the uh that kind of more run the facility, or that's where you kind of felt that tension, or did you feel like with the people that you were working with within the correctional facility were hard to kind of breach?
Yeah, there were times there's a certain, how shall I say, dealing with the administration, uh, forgetting what we need. Sometimes there was a little bit of discrimination in terms of what we were allowed to do and other, traditions, faiths were allowed to do. And that was not just, Buddhist, but other non-Christian faiths, face the same sorts of, well, no, you can't do that, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Just getting cushions in so that the men could sit, you know, long process. Um, Getting books in, donated books. Um, that was a long process. We did Jukai precepts, and they can't have Ratsus. They can't have Wakesa. They can't have anything. So the only thing we can give them are the lineage papers. And standing in front of a woman who is, she's doing her job, having to unfold those lineage papers so that they can see that there's no what crack. What do you think I'm going to put in here? You know, um, and a sort of vague disrespect, of what we're trying to do. Though I do understand that they do have to do their job, and yeah, there's some folks out there that can be pretty shady and would do that with some lineage papers, but the feeling of it, and the feeling of the men, when they had to see this and watch this, and I'm trying to give them something with respect and, and welcome them into this practice.
Yeah, and
Uh,
to hmm?
mhm.
And to have, because from what I understand, lineage papers are a very intimate, ceremonial, important
Hmm.
document that is
Hmm.
between the teacher and the person that is receiving the precepts, and to
Right.
have to unfurl that in front of somebody who is looking for contraband in it, or is otherwise going to maybe judge it,
Mhm.
when it wasn't meant for anyone else's eyes. You know, that's really hard, and
Mhm.
that's a probably one of many difficulties that you had to do when you were uh, performing Jukai for the people that were receiving precepts in the facility. But at the same time, what an amazing thing that you still stuck with it, and not just were allowed to bring in some Soto Zen instruction into the facility, but you also reached some people to the point where they wanted to receive the precepts, and they wanted to receive a Dharma name. They wanted to commit themselves to a path, and
Mhm.
so you were able to really build a relationship with some people and make it meaningful for them. And then, I mean, what an amazing, but heartbreaking thing where they can't have the rakusus, and they can't have the okesa, and they can't have the different thing that kind of help someone maybe identify symbolically with what they're going through. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, it's a very unique, it sounds like, Jukai experience. But I'm greatly appreciative of you still facilitating that and making it happen for them. It must have been very meaningful.
It was. I mean, I've been through Jukai with Teijo over the years a lot. You know, she's the abbess of Great Tree, and so all Jukais really are under her, supervision. She is the preceptor always, and that was my first precept ceremony as a priest, leading that and presenting that. The first time my name goes to, on those lineage papers as the teacher. And it was an honor to do that for them. Um, and just to go back a little bit, it was kind of an opportunity for teaching to this young woman who was administrating, and a way to explain to her, I got a little bit of like of teaching in there. I mean, I don't know that it went anywhere, but she asked questions. She was at least considerate enough and thoughtful enough to ask questions. Oh, what is this? What does this mean? And to be able to explain to her and say to her, this is what we take seriously. This is the bloodline. Here's the Buddha. Here is his name. Here's Daishin. I gave him the name Daishin. Here's Daishin. And here is, this is where this leads to. And hopefully all of this, makes the world a little better, for him, for us, um, gives him a connection that maybe because of his disconnection, I forget what I said to him, is why he's here,
Mm.
you know,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
give him the hope that when he's through with his teaching here in this, harsh place in this prison, he can come out and then he'll have some context for making this boxer. You know. And so it was an opportunity as well as a harsh, painful sort of experience. It was also an opportunity for me, for him, and maybe even for this young woman just doing her job
Yeah.
to have some understanding. So I'm no longer in North Carolina. I'm no longer at my temple as of 2020 when the pandemic hit. That's when I returned to New York and to my family. Um, so I'm not able to do that, with them anymore. And but that was one of the most important parts of my experience as a priest, was doing that volunteer um, work at the prison, meeting those men, um, and understanding that I am not much different. None of us are very different. Every one of us could make that one false move that tumbles us into that space. Um, and not too many people get the opportunity to uh, visit a prison or really engage with people who have had this in their life and know. And I wish that were not the case. Um, there's so much to learn there.
Certainly. And it's a really wonderful thing that you were able to have that experience. You're able to go and offer what you can offer, and to recognize the connection that we all have, and how close we are to each other, just as human beings, and
Mhm.
uh, how, yeah, that one false move can completely change your life. It could change it for the best. It could change it for the worse. It can make it extremely complicated. Um,
Mhm.
so that, but thank you for sharing that. And and now that you mentioned that you were back with your family in New York. Did you grow up in the New York area? Is that where you were originally from?
Born and bred in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
hmm
And is that
Eating
is that also,
bagels and real pizza.
yeah. Absolutely. No, there really isn't. There's not much like a New York pizza, and there's also not much like a New York bagel too. I do miss those a great deal. When they come out of the oven steaming, it's just like something else. Um,
Mhm.
and as far as like your introduction to Buddhism, and did that happen while you were living in Brooklyn?
Uh, yeah. Well, no. By that time, I was in college. My introduction to um, well, meditation and Buddhism in general came in college. Um, a little bit in high school because in high school we read Herman Hesse, Siddhartha. That got me interested and all that. But then when I went to college, I had the experience of in a religion class where a an Indian man was um, invited to talk about meditation and contemplative practice. And I'm not even sure what tradition he was from, but that kind of took me on that deep dive spin, oh my God, what is this? And I found uh, what appealed to me was the meditation. And I don't know why, but in particular, the Japanese version of Buddhism, but Zen um, appealed to me. The way it appeals to certain people to the point where they stick it on, the word Zen on their daggone restaurant. Need to put stop to that. I'm
Yeah.
really tired. So, but I've been there, and then over the years, I found myself here in this. So it started then, and it really took when I found the it was a sitting group, Charlotte Zen Meditation Society, long name, this little tiny group of people. Um, and sitting with them and through them meeting my teacher, Reverend Teijo Munnich from the category tradition, and all of these little uh, pieces that came together back in the late, well, 1989, 1990, 1991, you know, um, around that time, and found myself here. So
Yeah.
it
And
was a pretty conventional sort of uh, journey to this.
it felt like meditation was like a major component of that kind of pathway.
Mm,
As far as the what just in approaching a Zen form, and I'm not entirely sure how Katagiri uh, phrases it or how that approach is when it comes to sitting zazen. But was there
mm,
something about when you learn more about the philosophy or the mindset of Zen, the Shinkantaza, like was there something about that that felt particularly profound or meaningful compared to um, other meditation techniques that you had been exploring previous to that? And then also too, I mean, just to get into your meditation practice as you do it now, do you kind of bring in some other elements from other traditions or from other um, techniques into your zazen approach?
mm. Well, I think what most, what word? What I found most intriguing about it was its absolute simplicity. You know, Katagiri just said, "Sit down." You know, in the basics of it. You know, close your mouth, sit down, and stop. You know. And that was what was um, attracted to me. There was nothing to do. You know. There was nothing to say. I mean, there's chanting and all that that goes on in the activity around, you know, uh, the temple and Zen and the Zendo, but it's all pointing to the sitting and stopping. Um, I had a friend once. He was very much into Tibetan Buddhism, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. How colorful, you know. And I can respect that. Many people need those sort of things, but it was something that I felt would just capture me and tangle me up. I got enough stuff tangling me up. It has to be more simple than that. And the beauty of those traditions, I can certainly appreciate. And I can appreciate how they help, you know, the, the folks who need those things. We all need um, a certain path, a certain way. Um, don't give me that because I'll just make a whole kind of mess with that. And I can tell, you know, and that's, I think, what brings me here, simplicity, and also the stopping. You know, we were talking about this in a class my teacher's doing online. It's like the stop is the same stop that the Buddha turned to Angulimala and said, "Stop it," you know. And my crazy mass murdering self needs that stop, like everybody else. You know, just stop uh, and give it not just the breath, but the whole being to that stillness, that stop, and be in reality for a minute, you know, for 40 minutes. If you can handle it, 60 minutes, you know, yeah, to be in that stop and experience it um, and know there's reality. Everything else, you're making it up as you go along. You know. So I need that. Um, I don't necessarily, my temple, we do a lot of different things. We've invited many different teachers um, to engage with our sangha as guests, and to allow people to know. there are the forms, you know, especially since it's such a limited sort of choice down in North Carolina. It was very important to my teacher that, you know, people see. So we've had, you know, our good friend, uh, Shohaku Okamura Roshi and his no toys. Now that's a lot of fun. No toys session. And we've had our friends from the Thich Nhat Hanh group come and do sesshin, and we're singing, you know, and beautiful and singing, um, and many others. You know, we have a young, well, we're no longer young. We've grown up together. Um, a Tibetan nun who comes and she doesn't lead. Um, she doesn't want to lead retreat, but she comes and she sits with us. And there are the way of chanting that she has that we welcome. And it's kind of different from geez, I am a, you know, or grumbling. You know, it's a little bit different, and it gives it. Um, I'm not looking for variety, but it gives it an openness. Um, But in our day-to-day practice, it's very much Dogen, following the schedule, um, because that's what my teacher. Um, that's her practice.
Mm.
That's my practice. And it's not simply just because it's what we know, but just like everyone else, this is how we grew up. You know, that's our home training. So here we are, and we share it with folks. She may do some tonglen. You know, that's a very important practice for my teacher. Um, so, yeah, we bring other things in, but pretty much she likes to stick to the tradition, and so do I, because not simply because it's important to me, but at this point it is a bodily sort of holding for me. And I feel it's a way of expressing that I've learned, that I feel um, I can share with people honestly and completely. Um, Not just something I've picked up and put on and said, "Oh, let's do this." You know, that's that's not how I work. So, if you understand what I mean, it's not a discrimination against other people that find things in the world, you know, in practice, but simply that's where I am. That's what I have.
Well, how special though that you have explored different traditions and you have Great Tree Zen Temple incorporates a lot of different traditions into the building itself and has a lot of like exposure for people that are in a limited Buddhist space in North Carolina, and so there's a lot more exposure to different things, and it's wonderful that there's that Great Tree kind of facilitates that. But at the same time, it's a really wonderful thing to hear that what you have found and what you have committed to within Soto Zen and how you approach it in your relationship with your teacher is so meaningful that it feels like it is uh, really fitting your life in a very beautiful way, in a very authentic way. And so I'm just very happy to hear about that special relationship that you have with your practice and with your temple and with your teacher. And I think that having someone, whether in your sangha or otherwise, just someone that is that committed, it creates just such a beautiful platform to learn from. It just to see somebody that is very rooted in a practice. You get a depth communicated to you that I think is as someone that is learning that is on a Soto Zen path, it's just a really helpful thing to hear. And also too, I mean, just you've been an active member of Great Tree for a while, and you are ordained priest, and you still take a lot of meaning in that, just stop, sit down, and like and begin in this simple practice. Like there's something about that simplicity. It's actually, it could be quite difficult for somebody to sit still and to try to really be with themselves fully and bring their full self to their sitting. But there's something about that simplicity, about that um, direct order of stopping, that is still something that is holding meaning for you. So just thank you for sharing that. Certainly. Um, and I thought I had, oh yeah, and so there's something that is unique to Great Tree beyond just having a space for Buddhism to exist in a sangha to operate within North Carolina. But it is, I don't know if it still functions this way, but there is a women only residency there, right? There's like a monastic, or maybe semi-monastic element to it that is specific for women and those that identify as women that are that are uh, provided space and resources for committing themselves further to a practice. And I believe that that is also where you have done a lot of your training. What was it like kind of being in a space where um, the space was mostly made for women to explore this for themselves, while also being a space that I guess in other operating hours, all are welcome of all ages. What was it like to also have that component where you are with women exploring this and committing with each other?
Um, it was because I grew up with it. I don't know anything else, but um, it's it was. I want to say empowering. I don't know why I'm uh, not satisfied with that word. The intent, my teacher's intent, was to provide a place where American women um, could freely develop um, their own um, spiritual path in this tradition. And she, um, in the 70s, late 60s, 70s, um, as Buddhism was growing, everything was pretty much uh, controlled by the male component of whatever um, organization, community there was. And she had um, experiences in that she felt did not allow her to fully engage and develop, in the practice um, equally. Having been Great Tree, as you say, is in the monastic or convent sort of situation. Um, Only women are allowed to reside there as as residents, as priests. Um, but sesshin, all of our activities are fully opened to both men and female, male and female. Um, and very much I've always, experienced sesshin with a mixture of male and female. There's no particular, we've had male, a men's retreat, um, and we've had women's retreats. But they are kind of, special things that allow people to explore that for themselves. Um, but I don't know that in terms of the general activities of it, that it's very different from any other place that is co-ed, mixed sex and all that. But in terms of the day to day and taking care of the temple, um, making decisions about what goes on, um, it's fully um, it's fully the female that decides what happens there and what goes on there. And whether that's good or bad, it's a teaching of a sort for women to to abide in that space of decision making, of um, learning how to hold the tradition uh, in a way that is maybe a bit different than it would be if it were all male or, you know, male led. I also had the opportunity to um, do practice period at the Nisodo in Japan, that is a women's convent. Never worked so hard in my life because they are playing. Um, and it's, you know, that's where I really saw a difference in how male and female um, abide in this practice. Um, when I was in other uh, Ango practice periods, we use English here for those who might be a little annoyed at the terminology, but where it was a mixed practice period basically led by men, you know, that was easy. Like all these rest periods and, you know, all that kind of stuff. No. Um, in a sense, part of it is because the women maybe felt they had something to prove, but at the same time, they weren't playing. You know, they're not getting anything out of this except the practice. There's no um, hierarchy where they would be over male, you know, in that hierarchy. In Japan is what I'm talking about. So yeah, the diamonds are cutting to the, you know, they were tough, and those were tough long days. But some of the best practice I've ever done. I don't know that that's how we would express it here in the United States. In a great tree, I needed to experience that. I thought because of what we were trying to do at Great Tree. I don't know that we have to, but I know that there might be um, some things that we're missing because we don't uh, pay attention to what the female might bring if we don't explore that. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's, you know, anything. It just means that these are um, minds, bodies. This is Dharma that we might be missing out on simply because of some social structure, um, as it is with any other, you know, um, failure to include. You know, what are you missing? So I don't know that that explains all of Great Tree, you know, and that position. But I think that's my teacher's intent, is to explore and to allow that to come out into the world.
Yeah, and especially that last point is very uh, it's, to me it feels very important to have this this element where it's like the female body, the women's body is a part of uh humanity, and if Buddhism is going to shed light on the interdependence and the connectedness and the shared elements of life, uh, through teachings and through practice, it can't only come from a structure that is more or less based in s- social histories or cultural contexts. You know, it has to be open to that inclusivity, and it doesn't necessarily mean that one listening from the experience of one body is better than another, or the context is better than another, but that voice needs to have a platform. It needs to be shared in order to have a more in-depth experience with the Dharma, and and reach more people, and to have more people feel seen as they do it. And the practice that you did in Japan, it does sound like it was a remarkably different uh, practice experience than you'd had before. That, you know, you not having worked that hard in your entire life. You know, that discipline. You know, talk about keeping to a schedule. It's like keeping to a schedule while you're fully exhausted. You know, um, and I was curious about that element too, where uh, I believe that work practice, like labor practice, beyond sitting on a cushion, happens when you were doing your training in Japan. Did the rigorousness of the work and the, you know, whether it's cleaning or the maintenance of the grounds, or, you know, the various things that you were doing there, uh, was there a time when you were working in your mind or in your being, that the sitting and the work kind of started to blend, where you really couldn't tell the difference between, in a mindset way, that maybe pulling weeds was not too dissimilar in a real felt way as that kind of shinkantaza? Or did it always kind of feel like uh things were so harried that you couldn't really tell the difference between the realities that you were kind of experiencing be- between the days even?
Hmm, that's a good question. And maybe at first, I think my first experience of it was that it was so hurried and, oh my God, where we go next? Okay, off the tongue, bow. And that very first, few weeks was very much like that. That's why you have to stay for 3 months. You can't stay for a week. You don't gotta get that in a week. Um, but as the time rolls on, you know, it comes. You um, it quietens. You know, you're on the tongue, and a few hours later, you're scrubbing the toilet, and the attention, that you give to that scrubbing and finding, not just there's a sort of peace in scrubbing a toilet. There's a sort of connection in scrubbing the toilet because you really know why you're doing it. You're not doing scrubbing the toilet to get paid. You're scrubbing the toilet because somebody's got to use that thing. It has to be safe. It has to be clean. It has to not cause harm. And if I don't do this right, somebody could get sick. Um, and it's not just me getting sick. And it's not because I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get sick. It's because my sister has to sit on that bowl. My teacher has to sit on that bowl. This is the Abbess toilet. What an honor to do that. Um, Not because she's even going to know who did it. Uh, it becomes slightly a ritual, though it's not, done in a ritualistic way necessarily. It becomes part of all that you do in the temple. Um, it becomes part of what you do when you pick up the knife and cut up that, onion. wash the dishes, place your shoes in the correct way. Um, all of it becomes um, it becomes Dharma practice, not necessarily zazen. And the way we take our busy, crazy energy to the cushion and have to figure out how to set it down. You get off the cushion and the understanding that, oh, I put my feet on the floor into my slippers, set that down. Walking through the hall, it's busy. Robes are flying, you know, flapping. The drum is put that down. Ah, Senpai is fussing at me again because I forgot. Put that down and go do what you forgot. Why'd you forget? Because you didn't put stuff down in order to, smoothly run. And the smooth running of all that um, becomes the Dharma practice. You see where the dust is flying because you're not there. You can't just be there on the cushion, you know. You have to be there when stuff is going on because if your butt is stuck on the cushion because you can't, we gonna eat. Yeah, yeah. So it's I don't know how to explain that so well. Because it's an experiential thing that's hard to express. When I try to encourage people to do that practice, it's hard to explain. Why would you want to get up in 4 o'clock in the morning in the cold and, run outside and ring a bell? Why would you want to do that? Because when you go out there in the cold and it stings your face and all your sisters are in their sleeping, waiting to hear that bell so that they can get up and start their day and make have the world move the way it needs to move. That's important. That's the Dharma. That's loving those people who are laying there waiting, you know, and your bell opens their eyes. Your bell moves them through their day. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that wonderful? And the stars above in that cold sky and that connection to all of that. Bang, you know, do it, and I think that felt so lovely and true and filled me so much um, that and the understanding that I don't need to go there to find that experience. I just need to be here. I just need to be here. It's right here. And that's what that practice, what that training is meant to teach you. It's not meant to just teach you how to ring a bell. You can ring a bell. Anybody can ring a bell. Anybody can light a candle. You know, anybody can chant sutra. But can you do everything with that same fullness and awareness and connection? That's the training. That's the true training. Um, so I don't know if I expressed it now, but that's kind of where I am with that and wishing it for everybody.
Wow, that is your recounting of that bell and that your experience with the bell to wake up your sisters at the convent. It's just such a beautiful story. It's such a meaningful story, and And yeah, there is that conventional thing of like, first of all, why wake up at 4 in the morning? Second of all, like, why would you go out in the cold to ring a bell and do all these different things? But when you move beyond those conventional comforts and you are being asked to do something alone, right? There's only one person, not like 10 people come up and start ringing the bell together. That'd be interesting. That'd be very loud.
Hmm.
But that's one person goes out there, and here you are ringing a bell, and you're not alone, because the whole point of doing that is to wake up other people, to move their day, to begin the day in that way. Um, and yet you're also surrounded by the stars, you're surrounded by you're feeling the cold, you're being embraced by everything. And then the vibrations of the bell also kind of echo forth and move about. And yeah, it just, you made like a very, what would on a certain level look like a very isolating practice or element of practice in that way, was connection from the very beginning. I mean, there's almost like there's no place to find it where you are not relying on, or in other ways a part of someone else's day or practice, from the very get. So thank you for sharing that. Such a beautiful story. Um, and I know we're starting to come to a close on our conversation, and I just wanted to take a moment to see if there's any cause or foundation or community that you would want people to learn about, to know about, that you'd want to promote, or anything that whether you're involved with or that you've heard about yourself that you want to get more attention um, brought to. And then also to separately, if there's any advice that you would give to somebody that's coming along the Buddhist path that you would have wanted to have heard at some point while you were coming up through it. So,
Mm. Well, the first community that comes to mind is all of us. It's like, y'all, do you see what's going on? You know, but if you're talking in specific about those communities, all of them. You know, my base is Great Tree. We've had our struggles, you know, over time, and all Dharma organizations have their struggles financially, uh, socially, ethically, all of those things. We need to take care of all that. And the only way we take care of that is to take care of each other. Um, and being a part of Great Tree for all of my priests um, growing up, you know, I just had my 18th birthday, my my anniversary of my ordination was in February. Was at Great Tree. So of course, there's other places, Beacon Zen, um, Zen Mountain Monastery, Hokyoji, and all these places I've been and places that I haven't been. And we need to take care of each other as Dharma people. One center is not separate from another. Don't care who your teacher was or who founded it. Makes no difference. We Dharma together, um, or there's no Dharma. So we need to take care of each other. Um, I'm part of the um, Association of Soto Zen Buddhists, and that's a place where these um, all the Dharma centers um, kind of congregate in a organizational way. Um, support each other. That's all we need to do. Um, that's what we're meant to do. In terms of what I would wish somebody had told me is, you know, I wish somebody would have gotten in my face and say, delusional, what you doing? You're delusional, you know, you're sitting on that cushion, la 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 la. And you know, and every time I stood up, somebody is screaming in my face, delusion, because you don't even know, you know. And it takes a long time and to remind me that this is a lifelong practice. These are lives long practice if you want to go there. Um, and it takes that time. Just because you got to sew a Roxu and put it on, that doesn't mean a thing. You sew a big old okesa, that's nice. I've done that twice. Doesn't mean a thing. You know, you can hang anything on your neck. You can wrap yourself in anything. Um, but the true robe is the air that swirls around you as you walk through the world. You know, you don't need that robe. It's already there. The mission is not in this piece of cloth. Um, it's everywhere. Here, there, and everywhere. Beatles song. Here, there, and everywhere. Get out of your head. Um, open your heart. Drop that delusion of what you think you are and how good you think you are because you're doing all this. No, it's in the, you know, it's in the movement. It's in the ringing of the bell. You know, it's in the, as you say, the connection of all that you do. You open the door like you're ringing the bell. You type up that letter like you're ringing the bell. You send that email. Think before you send it, like you're ringing the bell. You know, you speak to that child. You speak to, you know, the girl at the cash register, like you ringing that bell for all the Dharma. You know, with all, you know, and drop the delusion. And the other thing that my pet peeve in Soto Zen, well, at least in American Zen, in our heady way, love, 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 love. Ooh, she said that. Dogen didn't say nothing about love. Yes, he did. Read it. Read it close. Read it and bring it close. You know, my brother Dogen. You know, I always people think I'm being disrespectful. Brother Kotama, brother Dogen, baby brother Dogen at this point because I'm older than he got to be. Um, love. That's all they're talking about. And if you keep it in your head and you want to put all these fancy terms to it, and you want to use different languages so that you can hold it out here instead of right here. What you doing? Delusional. Yeah. So I wish somebody had shot it in my face all those times when I got up from the cushion thinking I had done something for 40 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And a lot of that goes ties back to what we were talking about earlier with the Jukai in the correctional facility where, they weren't allowed to have the Okesa. They weren't allowed to have some of these other things. And uh someone might feel like they're not fully committing or doing the practice if they don't have the garments, if they don't have those things. And not to say that those things aren't meaningful, but I really appreciated how you phrased it where, the real Buddha's robe or the Dharma's robe is the air that swirls around you as you walk through the world. I mean, that to me, I mean, talk about inclusivity. I mean, there you go. I mean, like as you walk the world, wherever it is, however it is, you experience the world and you move through it. That can be enough. That can be enough. That can be where that true connection is, wherever you are. So thank
Hmm.
you. Reverend Chimyo, thank you so much for speaking with me today. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciated you sharing so much. And a very big congratulations on your ordination anniversary, your ordination birthday, 18 years. That's really wonderful. And yeah, thank you for taking the time today to speak with me.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me to participate in your project. I think it's wonderful. And yeah, do it, yo.